So Dan, thanks for joining us. I know you recently wrote great article I enjoyed reading for finishingandcoding.com, talking about the finishing industry and artificial intelligence, really any industry and artificial intelligence. But summarize for us really what it was you were conveying in that article, if you could.
Well, Tim, first and foremost, thank you for inviting me into this Tech Talk
Hmm.
and publishing this article. It's very much appreciated. And
Hmm.
the first article that I had written back in November, that really wasn't that long ago, if you think
Hmm.
about it. And at that time, it was more of a real pushback on AI. And I think it
Hmm.
was because of the term artificial. And who wants something artificial? No, nobody. I mean, you don't want
Right. Right.
artificial ingredients. I mean, that had a very negative connotation
Right.
to it.
Hmm.
The
Right.
second part with that is AI was just booming, and so
Hmm.
in people's head, what they relate to is what they're familiar with, and that's what Hollywood gives us. The
Right.
Matrix, Terminator.
Right.
Some of us who date back even further, 2001, and how.
Right.
So there's a real struggle with AI, artificial and intelligence. And so the narrative for the first article was, why don't we change what that A means? And why don't we
Mm.
make it, rather than artificial, assisted, augmented type of intelligence? And
Right.
so wanted to get the readers and within the industry thinking a little bit differently, and how this tool can assist us, how it can augment us. And so we fast forward, and I mean fast forward to July. And
Hmm.
it's not that long ago. And what I'm hearing and seeing within the industry and talking to associates, it's no longer, something that is causing trepidation. Now the talk is about integration, and how do we integrate AI into the workplace and into every day. So that was really kind of, and in the first article, I said, stay tuned for the next chapter. I just thought the next chapter might be 2027, but the next
Right.
chapter,
Right.
is
It goes that
is now
quick. Yeah.
that
Right.
quick.
Right. Right.
And so
That
that
quick.
is that crazy.
Mm.
Uh,
Very
I've
much so. Yeah.
never seen anything like it.
Hmm.
And
Right.
so
And
then,
it's funny as that, like I said, it does. I mean, they used to say technology doubles every 3 years or 4 years, but now it seems like every month we're getting something new that it can do, or changes, or new technology that's affecting us. It seems like it's coming out at a much more rapid pace, as you said. Yeah.
and I think with that, kind of the trepidation and how best to integrate that, and along the lines of what you said, how quickly it happens. And I wanted to kind of put that in perspective. And for many of us, growing up, our research was driving to the library or having our parents drive us to the library, going to
Right.
the
Crack a
card
book.
catalog. Yeah, opening the card catalog, going down to the section, copying and pasting, and writing our report. And that also in work, we did the same thing. And so you look at that, and in 1998 is about the time when Google, came about. And that's funny now because Google is a term in the dictionary,
Right.
and
Hmm.
you would use Google as your card catalog, and
Right.
Google would give you links to your books, and you would click on those links, and if you liked it, you copied and pasted it. So that's 1998 to 2022. 2022 is really when we started to hear and see more of generative type of AI, using a
Hmm.
large language model, generating a response. So we cut out those links in Google, and it actually opened the book, and gave us information. Generative, though, the challenge with generative is that what it did was it predicted, it assumed, some of the information and answers, and it gave you what's called hallucinations. So,
Mm,
wow, that's not correct. And the warning is, hey, make sure it's correct because it'll take you down a rabbit hole.
right.
2022.
Exactly.
2024 is when agentic started to come in. Agents,
Hmm.
so to speak, fact finders. And so that's 2024, where it would take the generative. You still have to talk, you still have to respond, you still have to get information. But these are agents working behind the scenes to give you, factual information. So that's
Hmm.
2022, 2024. It's now 2026. And you have a combination of generative and multi agents. So if you look at it, 1998 to 2022, and then, like you said, the time span 2022, 2024, 2004 to 2026, it's just accelerating.
Right.
And so,
Ex-
with that, I wanted to try to use that as kind of putting that in perspective, but also what you hear about AI, and no disagreement, is AI is taking the place of a human. It's doing your thinking, it'll write your report. People don't have to think anymore. Well, going back to the library, you can cut and paste, you can put that in your report. It's called plagiarism. It's still
right.
called
Exactly.
plagiarism.
Right.
It's still called
Right.
plagiarism. It's just an easier way to plagiarize, and
Right.
harder to find that is plagiarized.
Hmm.
So what I wanted to
Right.
try to do is to kind of walk through that as kind of setup, and now looking how the finishing industry can address the concerns, and they're legitimate concerns still. I mean, legitimate concerns. But
Yeah, let me ask you that. Yeah, I was going to say, let me ask you that. Well, why do you think that finishers are maybe possibly intimidated by, in bringing anything into their shop that would be artificial, AI related to do that? Why do you think that they're intimidated by that sometimes?
yeah, Tim, that's a really good question, and I thought about it, quite a bit. Part of the easy answer and legitimate is security. Wanting to make sure that you've got the security in place, that this doesn't become public information. The other is when you think of artificial intelligence, it has such a broad scope to it. Where
Right.
do I start? How do I use it? What's the cost of it? Do I need a whole ERP system? And so I'm trying to look at it from a crawl, walk, run approach, baby steps. Don't go change your whole ERP or your whole CRM system. That's a run. And that is extremely intimidating. So you got to crawl, but I think people still in their minds, see some of the large scope of it, looking at it to macro, and then with that, I think there's kind of that intimidation, so to speak, is where and how they can best use it.
Right. Right. Yeah, definitely. Most everybody is, like I said, not just finishing. I think everybody is. Um, could the argument be made that AI is actually in shops now and they're not really truly seeing it and calling it AI, but they're doing certain things? Is it being used? I know you, with Miles Chemical, you guys are in a lot of shops. You have a lot of relationships with a lot of finishers. Do you see some of it in there, or and do they even realize that they're using what would be considered AI at some point?
Yeah, I mean, once again, great question. And to kind of quell the fear, intimidation, I'm not using it. Wait, we're using it.
Mhm.
We're using it every day.
Right.
Um, and that's a value that has been brought to us from companies that see how AI can enhance their product. You go into Google now, you do a Google search, and there's AI that's built
Right.
into that.
Hmm.
You use a chatbot. A chatbot being is whether it's Grok or whether it's Chat GPT. That's AI. So, or you use Teams, and Teams afterwards summarizes your meeting and provides action items. That's AI. So, and that goes.
I
It's
mean,
funny. AI goes
well,
back to Siri. AI goes back
well,
to
I was going to say, even when they send their trucks out to deliver their parts, right? They're using AI to get these parts there the quickest way they possibly can, right?
yeah.
GPS. all
Yeah.
these things. They're trying to these models that are getting the vehicles there the quickest way through the best routes and things like that. So I agree with you. Like I said, a lot of them are using it now. They may not be knowing that's what it's called, but it is there in their everyday business, and it's making them more efficient. I would assume it is, and what they're doing with that.
100%. Well, and and that's kind of the first realization is you're using it. I am. It's like the old. Remember the old commercial with was it Marge? And she's the manicurist.
Right.
Your
You're
fingers
soaking in it.
are
You're
in
soaking in it right
dishwashing.
now.
Dishwashing,
Right.
yeah. So it's
Right.
along those lines.
Right. Well, I mean, so like I said, what are you seeing? Is some shops really actively looking to integrate this into their facility? And what can they do to become more familiar with ways that they can integrate this into their operations that they've got going on right now, either in the business office or out on the shop floor?
Sure, sure. Yeah, yeah. And there are companies that are in various degrees of utilizing AI. And it would be great for people who watch this Tech Talk is to come back to you or come back, and chat and say, hey, I am using it. Here's how I'm using it. But one of the real interesting, and I think is something that everybody, if they're not doing right now, should be doing, is engaging with a chatbot. A chatbot once it is Chat GPT, it's
Hmm.
Grok, it's Perplexity. You name it. Find one that you're comfortable with. If you're concerned about security, make sure you're working it within Copilot. That it has it's all within one system and it's all secure. But that's your trip to the library. That's your
Right.
Q&A. That's your first step. And so that's what I would recommend is to engage with a chatbot. I would say also is looking at chatbot, make sure it has both generative as well as agentic
Mm,
capability. And
right.
you might
Right.
need to upgrade $20, $30 a month so that you can have that dialogue. You can ask that question, it will generate information, but agentic will take it a step further. It will fact check it. It will find ways to get answers. It'll create for you. And now with multi-agent chatbots, and for me,
Hmm.
I used one where I've created agents. And one of the agents I said is make this devil's advocate, make this honest. I don't want to be
Hmm.
I don't want to be patronized. Make this for the metal finishing industry. And so the combination of both, and I actually use myself two chatbots, and I use that because I'll have one check the other.
Wow.
No,
Interesting. Yeah.
no different
Yeah.
than if you look at a reporter. Does a reporter write his story based upon one source of information?
No, you get multiple. You try to get the most you can, right? To fact check everything. Correct. Yeah.
Exactly. And that's what I'm trying to do. Is so the first step, use that chatbot as your personal assistant. Here's what's
Right.
nice. You can ask that question over and over again, and it will answer it. It doesn't get pissed off at you. You know,
That's
you
right.
ask your wife, 3 or 4 times,
You're in
you know,
trouble.
you're in
Yes, you're in
trouble.
trouble. You're in trouble with that.
You're in real
Right.
trouble.
Well, it's funny. With you all and Miles, like I said, Miles Chemical, you guys service most of the West Coast, and like I said, you're in a lot of shops and you're seeing what's happening, and you're already working with a lot of companies, even on their ERPs and digitizing a lot of the information and everything. So take me down. Last question. Take me down a little bit. Where do you see down the road where AI could be working more actively in finishing shops on the shop floor, or either doing quoting or things like that, which are
Yeah,
very time consuming? Where do
yeah.
you see your crystal ball down the road that you really see possibly AI really assisting these shops and how they do business with that?
Yeah, I know. I mean, great question. Great, for companies to think about is from a standpoint of, first of all, efficiency.
Hmm.
Is are you measuring what's your on time? What
Hmm.
is your reject rate? What is the most efficient process? Of plating parts. Troubleshooting. I mean, you can even take a picture of a plated part
Mm.
And, if it's a good enough picture and you explain what's going on, it can give you ideas as far as what's happening. Or you have a rack, set up and you're trying to process more. So, through various types of AI tools, now you can have automated sensors as well with that. From the standpoint, here again with costing, what is your method of costing? And is that the most efficient way? Are there more productive ways to cost? From an employee standpoint, we always struggle with, am I doing a good job? Hey, let me do your review. Great job. You can start to develop KPIs, key performance indicators, by individual, by
Right.
department, and from that, your system will measure that as well. Even like I said, from the standpoint of you have meetings, and whether it's through your teams or whether you have a little card and you have your meetings, and the meetings are summarized. And not only are they summarized, they assign action items. Not only do they assign
Mm.
action items, you have dates and you have follow-ups with that as well. So you're automating things that can be repetitive, or things that I got so much to do. Even
Right.
from the standpoint of, you're going out and visiting a customer. So, you can get as creative as you want to be, as sophisticated as you want to be. There's a lot, like you said, I think is a great point. It's already out there. We're already
Mm.
using it.
Right.
Start engaging in it more. And it's funny. I mean, years back, when I worked for a supplier that was back east, and this was back in the good old days when the best, most efficient, and cheapest flights were called back to backs.
Mm.
Where you buy different legs, and so we'd have to fly on a Saturday night and piss us off. And so we would on a Saturday night, we'd be in somebody's room. We get some pizza, we get some beer. We would open up our computers. We say, "Show me something." Hey, let me show you this in Excel. You know what text to columns are? No, what's text to
Mm.
columns? And so we will go roundtable. I think within the finishing world, and we're a close community. We whether through our trade associations, whether your magazine, which does phenomenal work as far as getting information out,
Hmm.
is start to get those conversations going. Crawl, walk, and run. Ask the chatbot, hey, here's this part, here's my racks, here's my process. Give me some ideas, and then from there, I'm looking to put in some type of system. So give me some ideas. I don't want to spend a lot of money. I don't want to have a monthly. I want security. That's kind of your first step, and then from there, talk to various companies as well.
Right.
I think that's a great way
Yeah,
to
it's never going to replace that. It's never going to replace that aspect of it. But like you said, it'll give you information much quicker than if you had to go search it yourself. It give you the information. Still, the human's going to have to make the decision at the end of the day, right? I mean, that's probably what's the best part of it. Is still going to be human decisions made with this.
there still will always be that human connection. There
Mm.
always will be. Look at our conversation right now. You, you
Hmm.
know, you always have that. And you look back and, early in my career, all the secretaries and the steno pool, and those have been, changed. Have we eliminated jobs? Well, we've shifted.
Right.
We still shift. And it's funny. I was at my neighbors over the fourth. I don't know, millennial, Gen Zs, and they're all working remotely. And I'm like, that's okay to a point. You better
Right.
have that direct interpersonal communication. I
Right.
don't care what your position is. I don't care if you're a CPA. I
Still
don't care
need
if you're
that
an
skill.
engineer. You have to have that skill. I mean, if you think it's gone, then our next happy hour, our next get together, let's all just stay in our houses, right? And then let's get on Zoom, and then we all drink our beers,
Right.
together. There's
Right.
nothing like
Exactly.
it. There always will be that human
Right.
connection, and that's what I try
That
to do.
is
I
a
try
good.
to create that.
Right. That's a great point. Like I said, uh, we certainly expect another column from you in a couple months. And certainly, as you see what's out there, like I said, you see a lot of what's going on in the shop. So I hope you'll write some more for us and educate all of those who may not be up on this as much as you are and what you're seeing in the shops. But again, Dan, I appreciate you taking the time out. I appreciate you sharing your thoughts and ideas with our readers very much. I know they appreciate it.
Tim, thank you once again for the opportunity to put this together. And I just hope that my next article is in a month from now. I hope it's longer away. Technology, slow it down a little bit. We're good, but
Slow it
slow it
down.
down a
All
little bit.
right. Thank
Hey,
you, sir.
yeah, and all the best with finishing and coatings and the work that you do.